area overall, and then we will open it up for questions and answers. So once we open it up for question and answers, feel free to put your question in the chat or to raise your hand or just take yourself off mute and ask your question. Um, so first, I go ahead and introduce Drew Thomas, who is the NEUP Office Manager, who will go over the NE mission and briefly discuss the topic area. Drew?
All right, thanks, Felicia, and thanks everyone for being here. I just want to quickly go over the Office of Nuclear Energy mission so that you all have some context around what we're looking for the CINR funding opportunity. As Felicia mentioned, we will be visiting with each of the program managers, which will give you, and those individuals will introduce themselves, give an overview of different program activities that are related to this topic area 3, the non-traditional, non-electric applications area, to give you an idea of what ongoing activities are happening at the department, and to provide some information in case you are interested in proposing research that's close to those areas. And one thing I'd like to point out as we talk today is that the topic area is intentionally very broad. We're looking for your ideas on where the gaps are, where the innovative ideas are to solve technological problems or gaps in this area. If you want to collaborate or try to integrate your research ideas with things that are ongoing in the program, that is an option, and that's why we're providing some program information. If you have identified gaps and have your own unique ideas that may not align with that program, those are also entertained here, and we evaluate all of these applications on technical merit, not necessarily priority to any DOE Office of Nuclear Energy program area per se. Next slide, please. So to discuss the NE mission, the CINR FOA is based around university-led research that meets the goals of the NE mission. Those goals are to advance nuclear energy, science, and technology to meet the U.S.'s energy, environmental, and economic needs. The mission is split into 4 different areas, keeping the existing U.S. nuclear reactors operating, deploying new nuclear reactors, securing and sustaining the nuclear fuel cycle, and establishing and expanding international nuclear energy cooperation. So anytime you propose an application to any of these topics, it needs to clearly address one of these mission areas. Topics that aren't a priority for any and do not fit in this mission space are medical physics, nuclear fusion, nuclear forensics, and environmental management. Those missions belong to other agencies or other offices within the Department of Energy. With that, I'll turn the time back over to Felicia, so she can turn the time over to the program managers to discuss topic area 3 specifically. Go ahead, Felicia.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. We are going to turn the time over to the program managers now. You want to just take a couple minutes to introduce yourself and the program that you manage?
Yeah, let me kick us off. Hi, I'm Jason Toki. I am the team lead for reactor optimization and modernization within the Office of Nuclear Reactor Deployment. I'm one of 2 team leads along with Janelle Edens, who's also on this call. My portfolio includes a few programs with equities aligned to this topic area, including our light water reactor sustainability program, which has a flexible plant operation and generation pathway that's looking at non-traditional end uses focused on the existing fleet. and also our Integrated Energy Systems program, which has a similar scope of work, but focused on advanced reactors. We have our federal lead, Jason Marcinkowski, on the line for those two programs, and he will, in a few minutes here, give you some actual specifics on the work we're doing in those areas. But before I turn it over, I will just make a plug for both of those programs beyond what Jason presents today. Sort of the latest and greatest and best information on recent technical reports and the work we're doing can be found on our program websites. So for the two I mentioned, that'll be lwrs.inl.gov for the Light Water Reactor Sustainability Program and ies.inl.gov for Integrated Energy Systems. Thanks. Janelle, do you want to go?
So good morning, everyone. My name is Janelle Edens, and I am the Advanced Reactor Development Team Lead within the Office of Nuclear Energy. And the Advanced Reactor Development Team manages the majority of our non-light water reactor programs within NE. And that includes the Microreactor Research Program. And I'm going to turn it over to Diana Lee, who's going to provide a brief summary of that program, as well as how we plan to use microreactors for non-electric applications.
Thanks, Janelle. Hi, everyone. My name is Diana Lee. Again, I am the Microreactor Program Manager. I think I'll just give an overview of what we've been studying in our different technical areas for the microreactor program. We have 4 technical areas, first being systems integration and analyses, which is looking into what the needs, applications, and functional requirements are for microreactors, including what locations would benefit from a microreactor. For example, Alaska, the price for fossil fuels is astronomically higher. So the economic case for a microreactor there is salient for the current time. We are also looking into microreactor supporting capabilities such as modeling and simulation in coordination with the Nuclear Energy Advanced Modeling and Simulation Program. And within that area, we're also looking into building the regulatory framework for microreactors, such as what regulations need to be changed or updated to allow transportation of a fueled microreactor. So we are performing research in that area to close those gaps. A second technical area that we're looking into is called technology maturation, and it is looking into advanced materials such as yttrium hydride for moderator, or structural materials such as grade 91. It's also looking into deployment of sensors, which would be needed for cases where we would want to have remote monitoring. And then we are also looking into heat removal technologies such as heat pipes and heat exchangers. The third technical area is really where our non-nuclear based test beds lie, and that includes SPHERE, our single primary heat exchanger removal emulator is. That's SPHERE, and that tests single heat pipes, helps us understand performance of heat pipes in various range of temperatures and during transients, and helps us to characterize performance such as gap conductance. We also have MAGNET, which is our microreactor agile non-nuclear experimental test bed. And with this facility, we can simulate how a core with, for example, heat pipes coupled to a heat exchanger and a power conversion system would perform, and how that can provide electricity or power needs to capabilities such as high temperature steam electrolysis. And then finally, we added a 4th technical area this year, which is microreactor applications, which is focused primarily on our MARVEL reactor. MARVEL is being developed and constructed at Idaho National Laboratory, co-located with the TREAT reactor. It is meant to be a 20 kilowatt electric microreactor that could provide electricity or process heat. It is going to use natural circulation of sodium potassium and then interface with 4 Stirling engines to provide electricity. The fuel consists of high-assay low-enriched uranium in the form of uranium zirconium hydride, which is very similar to TRIGA fuel, just longer. And once we have MARVEL up and running, which is targeted at the end of calendar year 2024, beginning of 2025, then MARVEL can be used to demonstrate how end-user capabilities could be coupled to a microreactor. For example, high power computing, water desalination, heating, ventilation, and cooling, hydrogen production, electric vehicle, charging, etc. And so we are also having a call for information about what interest there are for possibly using MARVEL. And I think Drew might mention that a little later. And so all these areas are really focusing on reducing the timeline for the ability to demonstrate a microreactor and closing those regulatory risks and gaps. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. If that is all the introductions, then we will go ahead and.
I'm sorry, Felicia. Can we move on to Savannah? She's going to give a brief overview of our maritime activities.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Janelle. Sorry, Felicia. So in the maritime space, NE has been looking at kind of I'll say an across the board approach for a variety of applications. This is still a pretty early stage area for us, which is exciting because there's a lot of work in front of us that proposals could explore. So we recognize that there are a variety of settings or applications for the maritime nuclear intersection, whether that's offshore reactor power, so like floating data centers or power stations, you know, like for emergency response or just supplemental power, or onshore or offshore but nearby power consuming things for like desalination or e-fuel production. And then what people normally think of in the maritime space would be nuclear powered vessels, so cargo ships or you know, passenger ships or towboats or those kinds of things. And then there's both the domestic and the international applications. So I'm personally very excited in this area because there's so much to explore. So what we're doing right now is looking at early stage techno-economic analysis, the demonstration requirements, looking at like what the regulatory landscape is, both domestically and internationally, and when you cross from domestic to international and vice versa. So there's kind of a wide set of possibilities in this space. I'll drop a link in the chat, but on the NREC website, there is a maritime page that gives a little bit of information and some current reports on what we've published so far. There are also 2 NEAPs in FY22, as well as an industry award with the American Bureau of Shipping, that if you wanted to see a little bit more about the work that has been funded to see what could be complementary or add-on, those might be good starting points as well. So Jason, over to you.
Sure. So both the light water reactor sustainability programs, flexible plant operation and generation pathway, and the integrated energy systems program both develop systems that integrate nuclear reactors and their thermal energy.
Sorry, friends, we're getting accountability drills and they're very hard to silence.
Both develop systems that integrate nuclear reactors and their thermal energy into industrial processes that produce fuels, chemicals, materials, and electricity, and of course can provide some low-grade heat to district heating applications and desalination or direct air capture, for instance. Our main goals are to enable the deployment of nuclear reactors with distribution and control systems capable of delivering heat directly to major industrial and commercial applications, and to convert nuclear energy into fuels for industrial and transportation applications, as well as provide flexible electricity generation capability to the grid with thermal energy storage systems. So we've divided our activities into several pillars. Nuclear applications R&D, which is very relevant to this topic. It includes industrial requirements, site integration and safety basis, and reference plant designs. I'm not going to give you the entire list, but those are the primary ones relative to this topic. And then in thermal systems R&D, we have thermal transport components, system design, which includes the extraction and transport of heat, heat engines, and combined heat and power configurations, as well as control systems, which could be relevant infrastructure here in this topic. So I think that's, oh, and sorry, we already also have a chemical conversion modeling and validation area that helps with the products, the chemical products, materials, and fuels components of these applications. But they're probably not a major emphasis here in this topic. That's all I have for an intro. Drew? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. Okay, so I think now we can go ahead and move on to questions and answers. So as I mentioned at the beginning, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat or raise your hand, or just go ahead and take yourself off mute and ask your question. All right, it looks like we have a hand raised. Charles Kelly, go ahead.
Hi, this is a question for Savannah. I just took a look at the link that you posted. Are there any working papers available for the things that say forthcoming?
The second paper that is forthcoming is, I'll say, mature, but not ready for public consumption yet, unfortunately, which I know is not helpful given the timeline for submitting these proposals.
And a follow-up, has that work been done internally at DOE or has it been done via universities?
The work, a little bit of both. So specific to the work being done through MNAG, the Maritime Nuclear Application Group, has been done through INL, the American Bureau of Shipping, Morgan Lewis, which is a law firm. But that working group does include universities, and then obviously the NEAPs are university specific.
Thank you.
Of course, and if there's a more specific question about the kind of forthcoming topic papers, please feel free to route that through the NEAP team, and I'll do my best to answer it.
I'll do that again. Thank you.
We can hang on just a few more minutes and see if we get any more questions coming in. Please feel free to take yourself off mute and ask a question or type one into the chat. It looks like we have a question in the chat. The question is, I was wondering what the scope of the research in this topic area would be. For example, we are considering a project to integrate prototype micronuclear reactors in association with Westinghouse to supply heat to a local cement producer. However, as we scope this research, we would like to ensure that the field simulations and eventual demonstrations are within the scope of this topic area.
I guess I can take this. This is Diana Lee. So I can just comment that we've had research in these areas, and so yes, field demonstrations and field. I'm sorry, I'm just going to look at the chat. Field simulations and demonstrations, they are all within the area of interest. We just have to see the details of your scope, really, to see how it applies. We appreciate industry participation. It's not required, but especially when you are trying to make something that will be used, it makes sense to get input from industry to make sure your prototypical nuclear microreactor is really meeting the needs for the area that you're looking at, such as cement. Hopefully that answers your question.
I can add a little bit to that as well. So this topic isn't tied to just the remote locations, military bases, maritime, and disaster relief missions. It can also be a conventional land-based application with advanced or existing reactors. So with that, there's some focus here on infrastructure needed to connect the nuclear plant. So electrical infrastructure, the plumbing for moving heat around, and all the associated equipment with that. It can even account for the site requirements, where you're looking at when you combine a nuclear reactor with a cement plant, what the layouts need to be for security, or just moving materials in and out of the the feedstocks or the products in and out, as well as the operational aspects of that. So hopefully that's helpful answering that question.
Definitely, and I'm just gonna jump in here. Thank you for the answers. So one of the things that we're considering is almost framing this as a feasibility study, and like you said, considering the electrical requirements, how do we plug it into the existing processing, manufacturing processes, and how do we consider the feedstock? So is that I guess, a correct way of thinking about projects for this topic area, like more of a feasibility study and trying to see how we can, what are the challenges, how we can make it work? Or do we need to go even beyond that?
I think leading to feasibility is sufficient. Yeah. But it still would have to have kind of the basis for that feasibility grounded in some of the things we talk about in the topic, the infrastructure design and, a reference design for the basis of that feasibility.
Right, definitely. Thank you so much for the answers. This helps me quite a lot.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll do a last call for questions. If anybody has a question, go ahead and put it in the chat, or feel free to take yourself off of mute and ask your question.
And Felicia, while we wait for that last call for questions, just want to mention a few things for the CINR funding opportunity. Pre-applications for this area are due on July 26th, coming up here in 2 weeks. So you still have some time to kind of formulate ideas and teams. If you have any questions between now as we conclude this session and the pre-application due date, please feel free to reach out to NEUP@inl.gov. It's listed here on this the front of this slide to ask those questions. Those could be process questions, or if you have additional technical questions that you'd like our program managers to address, you can submit those questions to NEUP@inl.gov, and we will coordinate with our team, our DOE team leads and program managers to get you a complete answer to your question. So those are the comments I wanted to mention before we dropped off here, Felicia.
Thanks, Drew.
And it looks like things are quiet. So we'll keep this slide up for everybody. And these slides will be posted online after the conclusion of this session, along with the recording of this session for others to view or for you to review again once it's posted. So with that, I'd like to thank all of our program managers for coming out and for discussing the area, giving us some overviews. Thank you all for attending, and we wish you the best as you propose the funding opportunity. I'm excited to see what you all have, all the ideas that you have planned. So with that, we'll conclude the session here and leave our topic area slide here for those that need to reference it. Thanks, everyone.